They gave me 5 years in prison for growing weed. And when I got home, it was legal. I didn't grow the most weed, but I did grow some of the best. I grew weed for Willie Nelson. I grew weed for Snoop Dogg. I grew weed for the love of freedom. I grew weed for God. And I grew weed for New York City. I grew weed for LA. I grew weed for the great state of Texas. I grew weed for the USA. And I grew weed for little Billy Clinton, though he did not inhale. I grew a whole bunch for heaven and a little bit for hell. I grew weed. I grew weed. Big old buds from little bitty seas. I grew weed. I grew weed for the FBI. I grew weed for the DEA. I grew weed for the lawyers to make it legal someday. And I grew weed for the prisons who locked me away. I grew weed for the snitches just to give them bitches something to say. And I grew weed for Wiz Khalifa. Well, I was on the inside. Folks say, how could you do that? Well, I did it with my mind. I grew weed. I grew weed. Big old buds from little bitty seas. I grew weed. I grew weed for my neighbors. I grew weed for my friends. I grew weed for Martha Stewart, Joe and Seth Rogen. And I grew weed for Beyonce, Rihanna, Jay-Z and crew. I grew weed for your mama and your daddy too. I grew weed for the sick, grew it for the poor. I grew a little for my own head, and then I grew some more. I grew weed. I grew weed. Big old buds from little bitty seas. I grew weed. I grow a lot on the farm today, but I don't grow weed no more. Now that it's legal, I just buy it from the store. I grew weed. I grew weed. Big old buds from little bitty seas. I grew weed. I grew weed. Big old buds from little bitty seas. I grew